Hi, everyone. This is Lisa D'Amico. I'm the curator of the Global Garden Virtual Art Exhibit, which is being hosted by the Cultural Alliance of Western Connecticut. And I have the great pleasure today of speaking to artist Jean Tansey. Hi, Jean. How are you?
Hi, Lisa. Thank you for all your hard work in putting the show together.
Oh, this was like a labor of love, seriously. And your picture, your artwork, which is behind you, refugees walking through water. I love it, and I also find it thought-provoking. So before I tell you how much I love it and all the reasons why, I'm curious to know its backstory. Tell me what inspired this piece.
Well, you're correct. It's interesting you use the term backstory because I would say for about the past 7 to 10 years, all of my artwork is something, an image that I've come across or a story that I've come across in the news. And then I dig down and do a little data mining and look at a lot of images. And then I kind of do a composite. But this was a theme that occurred during a lot of civil wars that were happening. But then it became migratory catastrophes related to climate change. So I have a whole series. I would consider the piece behind me a study. I have a 3-foot by 5-foot horizontal acrylic on stretched canvas, which is also a series that happens to be all women walking through water, one of them carrying a baby. They are going into hiding in the reeds. And then I have when the flooding occurred in Texas outside of Houston, which is quite flat, so the water had a long way to travel. It had a lot of area. And I have another 3-foot by 5-foot acrylic on canvas. And that piece is almost entirely blue. So the water is blue, the sky is blue, and the people are sort of mostly in grays. And I often use skin color, as in this piece, it's not a skin color per se, it's shadow people, or I may use some metallic paint because I don't want to get involved in necessarily the color of a specific type of ethnicity, but rather the universality of what we are watching unfold. I would say in the Northeast, Connecticut, New York, we have been relatively shielded either from border migration or climate migration, and now, and climate catastrophe, as we just saw this weekend with this massive tornado which just occurred. Yeah.
Jean, you're a storyteller. You're telling these incredible stories without words. And they are moving and they're powerful. And I'm so glad that you're part of this exhibit. Tell me a little bit about your technique. Like this particular piece, it's wonderful to reach a larger audience virtually. I love that. But in the same breath, I don't like it because I can't get up close and personal with your piece.
Right.
So I'm curious, is the piece torn or is it painted to look that way?
It is torn paper. I started with watercolor in my teens because I was a backpacker, so it was a medium that you could bring anywhere. And but I do use watercolor a little bit differently. I frequently have the figures as silhouettes, so I will wet the silhouette and then I drop in the pigment. And these are on. So they're not tremendous for watercolors, but I frequently work on 22 by 30, which is a standard size for Arches watercolor paper. And in many of my pieces, the way I'm dropping the pigment into that wet paper, it creates shadows that then delineate the form. But when you look up close, there's hardly any detail that you could ascribe to the artist's mark. So that's a very specific thing that I do with watercolor. In my acrylics, I also very much embrace the brush So the nature of the medium, I also use a lot of medium. So there's a lot of transparency, which is similar to the watercolor, but they're very brushy. And you can see a little bit of that in this watercolor just with the grass on the edge of the water that they are walking through.
These figures are haunting. And I love that they're like, in a way, as you said, nondescript, because I think any of us could be these people. It's not somebody else, it's all of us.
Right, and that's what we're seeing with the catastrophes that are happening. As I said, I will find stories. So I stumbled across this documentary, Campfire in Paradise, which is a little less than an hour, and it gives one day in the fire named Campfire in the town of Paradise in California. And then I did a composite of if you were in a car and you looked in the rear view mirror with the fire behind you, as well as the drama when they drop the fire retardant, it's a hot pink powder. And these are things, I don't live there, I do have family in California, but you wouldn't know this until you do the research, and then to put that plane in as well as the fire along the edge of the road so you could capture how close it was coming. And I like to use a lot of painterly effect because my goal is to have someone walk up and go, wow, look at that sunset, or look at all those colors. And then when they realize what they're looking at, they're a little kind of taken aback because they realize the story itself is not so such a beautiful story. It's more of a harrowing tale. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I love that it to me, it almost challenges the viewer. You know, it's one of the pieces in the exhibit that I feel like it's like almost like a call to action.
Yes.
Are you going to just be a witness to something, or are you going to make a difference?
Right, exactly. And to be aware of the news, I think that we get snippets. It's a completely different news landscape, and we have 24-hour cycles, and it changes so much. But the idea of being able to use art as narrative, I did thousands of figurative drawings. And as I said, as a hiker and backpacker, lots of landscape, it began to seem to be a natural to put the two together, to put the figure in the landscape, as well as at one point at age 40, I realized, you know, I need to create a career. So I went back to graduate school, and I am a clinical social worker. And I work primarily with women, and primarily with women who have children. So it was working up close, listening to stories. But then I'm also interested, we live in a little bit of a certain, right, in the United States, yes, we have poverty, we have things that are going on right here, for sure, but the plight of women throughout the globe. And so sometimes I would Google key phrases such as women at work and come across these astounding images of what various women are doing with, you know, primarily I'm thinking manual labor, right? And so I have like a Dalit bricklayer carrying bricks on her head in 100-degree weather from India, or mothers with children walking through water with the child in a big bucket on top of her head. I'm just very, very have a kindred spirit. You know, I was a single mom, and what women do, and of course men work hard also, but it just happens to be a nice overlap between what I do as a social worker and then what I'm able to do as a visual artist. So I felt like slowly things are all merging together.
Your talent to me is limitless. And I feel like just by the work that you do, you're making such a huge difference in the world. And it really is an honor to talk with you and an honor to have you in this exhibit. And
well, thank you so much.
I strongly recommend that everyone go to cawct.org and check out Jean's painting. But I also even more strongly recommend that you see more of Jean's work. And I'm gonna get all her information and I'll post it when I post this interview so that you can follow Jean on this incredible artistic journey. Jean, thank you so much.
Thank you so much also. Have a good evening. Okay. Take care. Bye.